So that's the Essendon scenario was as it was depicted last night. So lived 9 weeks in the top 4. Their form is wobbly. Is it? So if they don't make the 8 from here, Bucks, is it a failure?
I think given the beginning to their season, absolutely, yeah. And they were an interesting team with their trades at the beginning of the year. Like how much exposed talent they brought in. And Mackay started the year on fire and looked really good. Dersma's been good when he's been on the track, but he's had a few injury concerns. Gresham's probably been a bit hit and miss. And I just feel like the way that they were able to get into the season, to fade away at the end, and Gaz mentioned the last couple of games of last year, which I think it definitely sat. It sat. It was a nasty taste in the mouth for them, and they spoke about their pre-season. They set themselves up and they jumped in and they were able to stand up against anyone at any time for the most part. Their recent form has been poor. The game against Collingwood's probably been overrated given Collingwood's form before and after. And other than the West Coast Eagles, they haven't had another win since their bye. So they've definitely dropped right away. So there's real questions about it. Their ground ball stuff for me in their back half is an instant consideration, and it might be a relatively quick fix, but you'll have to find some 8 out of 10 ground ball players and let a couple of 5 out of 10 ground ball players go, and that might change their mix in some shape or form. But I think they're still in with a show, but they need to go now. That St Kilda game is going to be fascinating because St Kilda have really bounced off their back half pretty well. They looked dangerous against West Coast, so they're going to have a crack. They got nothing to lose. So Essendon, they get a really good test there, and if they can find a way to win that game and play 4 solid quarters, they'll stay in the hunt. They've still got plenty to chase.
Nathan Buckley for Supergroups, first picked every week for Kubota Excavators, supergroups.com.au. Where we are on the text, we're up to who the heck wears driving gloves? It's not 1944. So if you're listening to Tim and Gary, you'll know what the lag is there. That's from Tim. Colin's in Essendon with us on the Alltel open line. Hello to you, Colin.
Yeah, g'day, Gerard. Bucks, you're talking about Melbourne.
Yes, mate.
I seem to think, look, we played Fremantle on the weekend, and look, I regard them as very, very good, and I just think it was a selection problem over there, and they'll probably beat us any time. But our form's not bad in the last few weeks. We should have beaten Brisbane. We were in front, except for an out-of-bounds free kick was given. They got to go, okay, that's over. We thrashed Essendon. I just think, and before that, our form was picking up. But then you lose Gawn, and I just think their selection, well, they were lucky because it rained against Essendon probably with the ruck situation. But I think they erred against Fremantle. But Melbourne's not out of it at all. We've got MCG games against Port Adelaide and GWS.
And then Collingwood.
And
then Collingwood to finish.
Collingwood. Yeah, pick those 3 up. We only need another one.
Yeah, look, I think your win against Essendon was full of merit. It was grit. Yeah, there was a redefined midfield. Melksham in that front half, you looked very different. That was, that looks like a distant memory after a really poor performance against Fremantle. But that, once again, that's the coaching challenge. Exactly the way you discussed it, the way that you've prefaced it, is the way that it needs to be seen. But then it needs to be backed up with action. Melbourne have still got a lot of good players in their squad. If you're looking at what you haven't got, you've failed before you've begun. So they do need to have a look at that MCG form and the fact that they've played their best football there in recent times. But they are going to be coming up against some teams that are on the charge. They play the Suns away up there. The Suns will probably play like a top 2 side up there. And they've got Western Bulldogs on Marvel, which is going to be a challenge as well.
So for the Bulldogs and Hawthorn, the Bulldogs are better than the 4 teams in front of them, I think, but they are where they are. They've lived most of the season outside the 8, and Hawthorn they're the hot hand, 9 of 11. This is where, because they're coming from so far back, the margins of error become narrow, so you only have to slip up once. You could have bad luck within a game.
Yeah.
Never mind the rest of it.
Correct.
But it would be deeply unfulfilling for both of them from this moment in time not to make it because of the possibilities that they've opened up for themselves.
Well, there is an eventuality that at the end of the next round that they're 2 games out of the 8.
Mm.
So and they're playing Sydney in Sydney. So that's the reality. If you put yourself back in the hunt, and this is we speak about it quite often. Coaches will speak about it, and we go yeah, but we've got to bank the wins whilst we're finding out if we can be better. So Sydney's philosophy is always on. Longmire says we're picking our best 23 every week. So when you get to the pointy end, the challenge with that is, okay, have we developed a depth that we get players that can come in and play roles for us if we have an injury a spate of injuries, and they may or may not be going through that now. But when you get Robbie Fox, who's played 10, and he can come in and play multiple roles, well, he's a great cover, jack of all trades. But then you've got the rest of most of coaching philosophies around trying to develop that depth and trying to find better and trying to discover the next bit of improvement. But you've got to bank the wins. So if you haven't done that, and I think Bulldogs and Bevo was talking about that a long way out, that they weren't able to get the wins early and now they're coming home late. You need everything to go right for you. And you do need a little bit of luck. And maybe they need their luck now and it gives them the chance to break through that threshold to really have a crack at September. But this weekend becomes really important against Sydney.
Thank you. Tuesdays is a bit of art of coaching, a bit of prospecting today as well. It's transfixing to look at what might unfold in the next 4 rounds.
Just looking at what the ladder could look like. Essendon could be in 5th spot. All they need to do is beat St Kilda. They could be 5th and a game and a half inside the 8. So, like when you look at those possibilities, they might look like they're on the slide, and we might think, geez, they got a hard draw and whatever, but they have had enough wins to put themselves in that position, and a couple of good games, a couple of great performances, and that's it. And the results around you are going to be instructive as well.
Do you think Carlton will hold their nerve and finish second?
Oh, they're an interesting side. There's so much talent. They definitely don't have the team synergy that we saw through the back half of last year, and that can still be found. And they're going to have to. Pitnet comes in, and he's going to be absolutely driven to prove and to show his worth. So I think Carlton are going to have a couple of players come in like that. They could find a new dynamic at a new level really quickly. In short, I think that's going to be really hard to hold Brisbane off to get that second spot. But I still think they're a top 4. They'll finish top 4. Carlton.
Does the Koning injury worry you? So they have their ruckman, but not the straight replacement, which has been one of the most interesting conversations of the season, and not the luxury that they have for the next 5 weeks. De Koning he makes them different. He is different. De Koning is your very traditional physical ruckman, and that works. Yeah, but I think, so if you go, say you look at Melbourne's situation, Max Gawn's a 9 out of 10 ruckman, maybe 10 out of 10 ruckman, and Tom Fullerton's a 5 or a 4, because you're obviously not going to give you what the team needs, otherwise they would select him. I think De Koning's a 9 out of 10 ruckman, and Pitnet's an 8. So you're not actually losing too much in that role. You've got great contest. You've got really good aerial around the ground. Pitnet doesn't quite give you the ground cover that a Tom De Koning would give you, but he'll still have a crack at it, and he'll bust open some contests for ground level contests for Walsh and Cripps and Terra and Hewitt and whoever to come through. So I don't think Carlton lose too much there, simply because they've got great cover and depth in that particular role, and they've got an individual who will come in highly motivated. Melbourne didn't have that luxury. They had it with Grundy, but they don't have it now, and that's just sliding doors. I don't think the Grundy move was the wrong thing to let him go and to try and find resources elsewhere.
but you probably needed to cover that role and have a depth player that was maybe a 6 or a 7 out of 10. And maybe they thought that Fullerton could become that in time, but he's not there yet.
Will Port make the 8?
Come on, mate.
I want some
think
markers when I come back.
I think that working from the top, I think Sydney are right, Carlton are right, Brisbane are right. I think Freo will be okay. I think the Giants are a question mark. I think Geelong will be okay. I think Port Adelaide are a question mark. I think Essendon are a question mark. So I think you've got 3 teams there, the Giants, Port and the Bombers, that have to earn their way in. And I think you've got Bulldogs and Hawthorn that have clearly got the momentum, that are the major challenges to come in. And maybe Melbourne, if they can get their mojo, are in that. So obviously they're only the one win out. But I think Giants will need to earn their way to keep their position with Port and Bombers, and then the 3 from 9th to 11th are the major contenders. But that'll change in a week, and then in 2 weeks, and then when you come back, we'll be closer to understanding it.